Ceiling, floor, wall. We're going to group the ceiling, floor, and wall defects all together. This will save us some time in discussing them separately and will allow us to compare the very similar definitions. Ceiling, floor, and wall defects have always been some of the lowest scoring and lowest priority defects in the protocol in terms of repairs that need to be done in order to preserve a high REACT score. For example, if every single unit in a UPCS inspection had its ceiling literally caving in, the total scoring loss across all units would be something like 5 points. Now, nobody wants to lose 5 points on their REACT inspection, but let's put that into perspective. If every single unit had a loose toilet seat, you'd lose about 16 points. So a loose toilet seat was a little more than 3 times the value of a ceiling that was caving in. The most severe floor and wall defects had similar values. The minor ceiling, floor, and wall defects, like peeling paint, for example, had a negligible value of the sort where if every single unit was cited for the worst paint issue, the scoring value would total about 1/4 of a point. Now, that's not 1/4 of a point per unit, that's 1/4 of a point across all the units total, cumulatively. Under UPCS at least, the ceiling, floor, and wall defects had descriptive definitions. They were well defined. There were defects for holes of defined size, for deterioration of floor coverings, for missing ceiling tiles, for sagging or buckling surfaces, and so on. Inspire seems to simply give up on ceilings, floors, and walls. It's as if the committee who wrote the definition said, you know what, to hell with ceilings, floors, and walls. Let's not waste any more time thinking about this. Let's just tell the inspectors to write up whatever they think. Here are those new definitions in their shortest form. These won't seem all that lazy until I go into a little more detail discussing this. Ceiling. Deficiency 1 has an unstable surface, cracking, blisters, nail pops. Deficiency 2, ceiling has a hole to the outside or a hole 2 inches in diameter or larger. Ceiling 3, components not functionally adequate. Floor. Deficiency 1, 10% or more of the floor substrate is exposed. Deficiency 2, a floor component is not functionally adequate. Wall interior. Deficiency 1, interior wall has loose or detached surface covering. Deficiency 2, interior wall component is not functionally adequate. Deficiency 3, a hole greater than 2 inches in diameter or an accumulation of holes greater than 6 inches by 6 inches. Now, let's save the deficiencies that say a component is not functionally adequate for the last. We'll skip over those and come back to them. Ceiling deficiencies 1 and 2 are fairly practical. Deficiency 1 says a ceiling has an unstable surface. There's cracking or small circles or blisters, e.g. nail pops, on the ceiling, which are a sign the plasterboard sheeting may be pulling away from the nails or screws. For more information, cosmetic damage is not evaluated under this deficiency, and the inspector should reference other standards for applicable items. For example, wall, interior, leak, water, etc. Deficiency 2, a hole is present that opens directly to the outside environment. A hole is present that is 2 inches or greater in diameter. This is where I start to ask myself, what's going on here? A hole that opens directly to the outside environment? Like it's the ceiling, okay? So a hole to the outside is a hole that goes up to the sky, right? So rain and snow could just come right through it. And the same deficiency is a hole that opens to the sky or just any old hole in the ceiling that happens to be 2 inches in diameter. That just seems like a really broad range of holes to me. Seems like that could have been 2 different levels maybe. Floor deficiency. Floor deficiency number 1. 10% or more of the floor substrate area is exposed to any room. Now that's a pretty clear defect. 10% of the floor, you're seeing particle board, plywood, or concrete. The floor covering is significantly messed up if 10% of the floor has exposed substrate. They're not messing around here. We're not messing around with little tiny problems on the floor. We're going right to 10% of the subfloor is showing. Wall deficiency 1 says an interior wall has a loose or detached surface covering. This is kind of like the ceiling deficiency. It says cosmetic damage like loose wallpaper should not be evaluated under this deficiency. So now, wait a minute. Loose wallpaper is not evaluated here. Cosmetic damage, I guess that means peeling paint, is not evaluated here. But the wall surface is pulling loose, so this must mean drywall or gypsum board is coming loose from the studs, I guess? Or maybe there's some loose paneling or tiles loose. Deficiency 3 says, interior wall has a hole that's greater than 2 inches in diameter, and there's an accumulation of holes that are cumulatively greater than 6 by 6 inches. At least these don't go outdoors or up into the sky like the ceiling defect. Here's where I start to lose my mind over these definitions. Ceiling deficiency 3, floor deficiency 2, wall deficiency 2 all say a component is not functionally adequate. The ceiling defect says that this component that's not functionally adequate does not allow the ceiling to enclose a room, protect a shaft or circulation space, create an enclosure of and separation between spaces, control the diffusion of light and sound around a room. So perhaps protect a shaft or circulation space has to do with an opening that goes into a return air duct. The floor defect says that this does not allow the floor to separate levels or to be walked on. I'm picturing you're on the 2nd floor and you can see the 1st floor because there is no floor. It doesn't separate levels, doesn't allow you to walk on it. And then it mentions that surface irregularities may indicate a problem. Surface irregularities like bulging or buckling floor coverings, they may indicate a problem, but in and of themselves, surface irregularities do not constitute a defect. It goes on then to instruct us that serious signs of failure should be cited under structural systems. The wall defect says it impacts the integrity of the interior wall surface, does not allow the interior wall to provide vertical separation between rooms or spaces. And it goes on to say that serious failure goes under structural systems as well. But when you look at the structural system definition, it says if failure is present at a structural element, then it should be evaluated under the respective standard, which may include ceiling, floor, and wall, as well as some other structural elements. So these standards contradict themselves in more ways than one. I've personally been inspecting apartments and buildings for about 25 years. I really can't think of any concrete example of a condition where a component of a ceiling, floor, or wall is inadequate to allow that structure to function. It just seems like a really vague and almost surreal definition, like, does the wall become transparent so I can see through it? I just think this could have been clearer, or it could have just been left out. We'd have all been better off if they'd just left this out. Speaking of things that have been left out, the word paint does not occur in any of these definitions, except for the fully extended version of the floor standard, which mentions that unpainted concrete floors are not acceptable in a living space. There's no mention of patched surfaces, access panels, water stains, although it does say active water leaks are to be captured under leaks water. So that's my tirade on these 3 sets of standards. Thanks for your patience. If you liked this video, found it helpful, give me a like. As always, consider subscribing. This is Michael Gant for the Inspection Group, the React Guru. Thanks again.